Let's talk about the gas prices in San Diego. And maybe you've seen some of this, going on around town, but the prices for gasoline are now over $6 a gallon. And this is nuts. And people are really freaking out about all of this. And I can imagine so. I mean, if you've got a 20-gallon tank in your car and you fill it up, that's $120 at the gas pump, which is just a ton of money. And people are really struggling with this. So really interesting article here in the Union Tribune that came out that kind of talks about it, breaks it all down. And as of Wednesday last week, we were at $5, 5.99 per gallon as an average. But where you drive around, you look at those prices on the placards by gas stations, it's over $6. And some of these folks, you hear a lot of different angles about this. On one level, obviously, it's hurting individuals, but it's also hurting businesses. Businesses, that rely on transportation. This is adding to their cost, and it's cost that ended up getting passed on down to consumers. So even if you are driving an EV, I mean, this is definitely still affecting you. And you might be wondering, okay, why is the gas price going up? Is this because of some evil oil company CEOs twirling their mustache and some cigar smoke filled back rooms doing this? Well, sort of. That's part of it. I mean, obviously, gas prices are primarily dictated based on a world market, and there's, OPEC, in the Middle East, and Russia have been, restricting their development of oil, their production of oil, to manipulate market prices. But at the same time, President Biden and the Democrats, on one hand, are talking about how they're against climate change, but on the other hand, they like to boast how oil production in America is at an all-time high, to kind of make up for the deficiencies from OPEC and Russia. So that's part of it. I mean, it's the oil producers kind of manipulating the market. But then you've got the refinery issue in California with, you always hear this, the refineries need maintenance and that sort of thing. And it's going to, the prices are going to ease in a little bit, especially when we come off that summer blend. I think around October, the prices are going to drop a bit. But, people are still reacting to this. And of course, they want to blame the president. They want to blame Biden. They want to blame Trump if they can. And the president of the United States definitely has an impact on this. I mean, Biden is certainly not blameless, and neither are other presidents, because the policies that come out of Washington, D.C. are what really drive a lot of this. But in my opinion, like, one of those policies is the fact that, the Democrats, the progressives, are trying to cut back on fossil fuels. They want to reduce fossil fuels, reduce carbon footprint. They want to see us go to a net zero. I think, is it by the year 2050? They're talking about phasing out, or there is a plan to phase out gas powered cars, from being sold on new auto dealer lots as early as 2035. So there's a real clampdown that's going on along, automobile companies, oil companies, that are basically saying your future doesn't look good. Your future is bleak. And so what do these companies do? They're reacting. They're not trying to increase production, overall. They can see the writing on the wall. And they also know that it's not going to be worth it to invest more. They've approved more drilling permits, but they're not all being taken advantage of, because if you were an oil company, would you want to be investing millions of dollars into further oil extraction when you know that the demand for this is going to continue to, be pressured by government policy? So in some ways, they're acting in their best interest, these oil companies, to try to keep prices high, but there are no incentives for them to drop prices lower, to increase R&D, to do more development. And then this whole thing with refineries. Yeah, I mean, some refineries, they go on a maintenance break, but how many new refineries are we creating in America? I mean, very few. I mean, and you can produce all the oil in the world you want, but if you're not refining it and converting it into gasoline, then what's the point? And so again, why are there not more refineries? And it's usually because of the regulatory state that makes that so difficult, so burdensome to clear all the government hurdles, that you end up not with really any significant development of new refineries. So the system is a disaster. There's no doubt about it. Now, Even diesel is like $6.36 a gallon. And the US Department of Labor has blamed high gasoline prices for accounting for more than half of the jump in inflation in August. And I believe that. Because again, government policies are what really is driving inflation. I mean, let's not kid ourselves here. They first of all, they flooded the market with all this 6 trillion in new cash, essentially devaluing the dollar. Then, a few years ago during the COVID, disaster, they were restricting supply, restricting production. And when you've got more demand, more money, but less available product, less production, that drives up prices. And inflation, as a result, is driving up gas prices, and other government policies are driving up gas prices. And yeah, that matriculates all the way through the economy and causes higher prices for us. But, I again, some people say, "Oh, it's Biden, it's this and that," and it's not like there's a knob in the Oval Office they can change gas prices. But there's no doubt that the rhetoric and the policies that come out of government leaders, not just in DC, but in the state of California and even in many of our local cities. I mean, even Gavin Newsom was in front of the United Nations blaming the oil companies for deception and fraud and denial of the negative effects of carbon and fossil fuels. And I mean, that's a politically popular stance to take, but again, if you're an oil company, if you're a company that wants to get into the refining business, et cetera, those are not positive signals that are going to make you want to invest in the market and really, try to have a robust competitive marketplace. So these policies work against them. Now, what can you do? A lot of times we feel powerless. We can vote for someone, but that doesn't really change much. You can vote for a different president. That might make some effect. I mean, prices were really low for gas when Trump was president, but that's because there was a lockdown and no one was driving, or very few were driving, and the freeways are wide open, and there was a lot less pollution because less people were driving. And there was very little demand for gas during the COVID shutdowns. That's why prices were so darn low. But now, yeah, because the economy is rolled back, more people are going into the office for work, and then at the same time, there's these negative headwinds that are affecting the way these companies set prices. But there is one thing you can do. It's one thing that I've done: opt out. You don't need to drive a gas car. I mean, there are a lot of other options. I've been driving an electric vehicle now for some form of an electric vehicle for at least 11 years. And I love them. I mean, I love the technology. I love all the financial incentives. I mean, you can get all these tax rebates, and there's free charging and discounts. If you charge your car at night, there's a lot of financial incentives to having an EV. But we have two EVs and solar panels on our roof, and that's how we get around. And it works great, and you hear a lot of negativity about electric vehicles. Oh, they can't go long distance. Oh, they take forever to charge. But you know what? We generate so much power from our solar panels all throughout the day here in sunny Southern California, that we can actually charge our cars at night and tap off the grid when the prices are super cheap. And then during the day, we're sending juice back into the grid from all the surplus from our solar panels. And quite often, in many months, our gas and electric bill from San Diego Gas and Electric is zero. At least the electric portion of it. We're still paying for the gas, and there's still some of those delivery fees for the electricity, but the consumption is essentially zero many months because we net produce more than we use. So that's a way out of this. And I know I feel the pain. I remember, gosh, probably 20 years ago in the early 2000s, I remember gas prices then were like $5 a gallon, and we were all freaking out. And I was driving a big Chevy Silverado with a 25-gallon tank. And if I wanted to fill up that tank, it would cost me $125 if I went from dead zero to a full tank. And that was 20 years ago. I mean, that was a lot more money then than it is now. And I remember I used to go to the pumps, and you get to the pump, and like a lot of them would shut you down at like $75 or $100 to try to prevent fraud. But people are really gripping about this. The gas prices are up. But I think the question we should be asking these leaders are, well, On they're sending a mixed message. On one hand, you're saying that it's not right that these gas prices are rising, but at the same time, they're basically putting forward policies and rhetoric that is, making it all the more difficult for oil companies to do business. So it's a mixed message. What's the right answer? Get government out of it. You know, just let. I mean, if people want to use fossil fuels, they can. It's a lot cleaner now, and more people are transitioning to EVs already. So the right thing to do is just kind of let the market forces kind of evolve on this. And if you just look at the financial, pen and paper, I mean, what we're spending for an EV is dramatically less. Now, granted, I know there's subsidies involved in there, but you know what? Those are the tax dollars that I pay. And so getting some of my tax dollars back for driving an EV, I think is a way to sort of gamify the system and benefit yourself. So what do you think? I mean, let me know your thoughts on why you think gas prices in California or here, even in San Diego, are over $6 a gallon, which is outrageous.